Blessed soul, allow yourself to stop right now. Stop everything you're doing. Close those other tabs, turn off the notifications, step away from the distractions. Archangel Michael has arrived with an urgent message about your spiritual freedom, and everything else can wait. Invisible chains are being broken at this very moment. You might not see it, but there's a spiritual battle happening around you as you read these words. Forces that have kept you trapped for years, maybe decades, are trembling with fear, because today is the day of your liberation. Give me just 35 minutes, and you'll feel the birth of true freedom. These aren't just any 35 minutes. These are 35 minutes that can divide your life into before and after. Before the chains were broken, and after freedom became your new reality. I am Michael, Archangel Michael, and I came to break the chains you don't even know exist. You know the obvious ones, those that bother you every single day, the addiction you're fighting to overcome, the fear that paralyzes you in the most important moments, the rage that explodes when you least expect it, the anxiety that steals your sleep and your peace. But there are other chains, more subtle, deeper ones, spiritual bonds around you that have been limiting your life for years, and you don't even realize it. They're there like invisible threads connected to your soul, dictating how you think, how you act, how you see yourself. You've learned to live trapped, thinking this is your normal reality. You've gotten used to the prison. You've memorized the walls of your cell. You know every corner, every shadow, every limitation. And because you've been there so long, you started believing that's all you deserve, all you can have. But I don't accept that. I don't want you living in prison. It's time to be truly free. Sarah, from London, lived 15 years believing depression was part of her personality. 15 years waking up with that weight on her chest. 15 years carrying a sadness that seemed endless. She had tried therapy, medication, life changes. Nothing worked for very long. Until one night, desperate, she opened that angel study Bible she'd gotten from her grandmother and kept stored in the drawer. She opened to Psalm 91 and for the first time in her life called out to Archangel Michael with complete sincerity, "Michael, if you exist, break this chain of sadness that's holding me prisoner." One prayer, a single prayer, with her heart completely open. The next day, Sarah woke up different. Not healed, not yet, but different. Like something heavy had been removed from her chest during the night. Like she could breathe a little deeper. Within a week, she was smiling without forcing it. Within a month, she was making plans for the future. Within 3 months, people were asking what had changed in her life because she seemed like a totally new person. Today, 2 years later, Sarah writes in her Angel Gratitude Journal every morning, "Michael, thank you for giving me back to myself." Michael, from Toronto, knew the smell of alcohol from the moment he woke up until he managed to fall asleep. 8 years destroying his family, losing jobs, lying to himself that he could stop whenever he wanted. His wife had given him an ultimatum: either you stop drinking or I'm leaving with the kids. Michael promised, like he'd promised hundreds of times before. But this time something was different. This time he was truly desperate. On the first night trying to stay sober, with his hands shaking and his body begging for a drink, Michael lit a special Archangel Michael candle he'd bought without even knowing why, and he screamed into the emptiness of his room, "Michael, I can't do this alone. If you're real, break this damn chain." He repeated that prayer for 21 consecutive nights, always with the candle lit, always with his heart broken, always asking the Archangel to do what he couldn't do alone. On the 22nd day, Michael realized he'd gone 3 weeks without drinking. Not through willpower, he didn't have any, but because every time he felt the urge to drink, he remembered the previous night's prayer, and the urge simply disappeared. It was like Michael had cut the chain that connected me to alcohol, he says today. It wasn't a struggle, it was liberation. You're hearing these stories and something inside you is recognizing the truth. Because you also have your chains. You also know your prisons. And you've also tried to free yourself alone. But if you don't break these chains today, they might become permanent. That's the truth nobody tells you. Spiritual chains don't stay the same size forever. They grow. They get stronger. Every day you accept living with them, they become thicker, more resistant, harder to break. The spiritual prison you've normalized is not God's will. God didn't create you to live limited, bound, trapped by invisible chains. He created you to be free, completely free. Every day that passes, these bonds get stronger and harder to break. That's why today is so important. That's why this moment is crucial. That's why you need to make a decision now. This prayer can break in 35 minutes what's been holding you for decades. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not promising something impossible. I'm telling you the truth about the power given to me by the Most High. I am Michael, the heavenly warrior who has never lost a battle. When I draw my sword, no chain can resist. When I declare freedom over a soul, every prison opens. I am the archangel who defeated Lucifer and his legions in heavenly battles. My specialty isn't just protecting, it's liberating the captives. Where I step, prisons open, and the oppressed are set free. And today, I step into your life. You might question, but why now? Why me? Why would Michael choose to liberate me? The answer is simple. Because you made it this far. Because your soul recognized my voice. Because deep in your heart, even if you don't admit it, you believe it's possible to be free. David from Chicago asked that same question. He had tried everything to break a pornography addiction that had tormented him for 12 years. Support groups, therapy, promises, strategies. Nothing worked for more than a few weeks. When he first heard about praying to Archangel Michael for liberation, he thought, just another thing that won't work. But he said the prayer anyway, more out of desperation than faith. After that prayer, I broke a 12-year addiction in 1 week, David says today. It wasn't gradual. It wasn't difficult.
It was instantaneous, like Michael had cut a cable that was connected to my soul.
Now stop and think. What would you do if you knew with absolute certainty that your chains could be broken today? How would you live if you woke up tomorrow completely free from the prisons that have limited you for years? What dreams would you pursue if you had no fear? What relationships would you build if you had no bonds from the past? What version of yourself would emerge if all the chains were cut? Close your eyes now. Take a deep breath. Put your hand on your heart and feel it beating, and proclaim with me out loud, I accept liberation from Archangel Michael. Say it again, louder. I accept liberation from Archangel Michael. Now write in the comments, Michael, break my chains. Do this now before continuing. This is the first act of your freedom, publicly declaring that you choose to be free. Because what comes next isn't just a prayer. It's a real, powerful liberation experience that will change your life forever. This is the prayer Sarah said before being freed from depression. The same one Michael repeated until he was free from alcohol. The same one Jennifer used to break the chains of fear. The same one thousands of people around the world have been saying to experience true freedom. And now, it's your turn. Glorious Archangel Michael, Supreme Commander of the heavenly armies, Prince of angels, invincible warrior who has never retreated before any battle. You who know the roar of spiritual warfare and the majestic silence of victory. You who wield the flaming sword of divine justice and carry the impenetrable shield of God's truth. Come now with your unquestionable authority, with your irresistible strength, with your transforming presence. I invoke your presence not as desperate supplication, but as a decree of faith. Not as a spiritual beggar, but as a child of God who knows their rights in the heavenly dimension.
Michael, invincible warrior, now I ask with all the faith in my heart, cut now the invisible chains that have bound my soul for so long. These bonds that I can't always identify, but that I feel limiting every area of my life. Break the chains of fear that paralyze me in the most important moments. That fear that whispers lies about my ability, that makes me retreat when I should advance, that keeps me small when I was created to be great. Cut the bonds of anxiety that steal my peace and disturb my sleep. This excessive worry that consumes my energy, that imagines tragedies that never happen, that makes me live in the future instead of enjoying the present. Break the addictions that have become my daily prison. These destructive habits that promise pleasure but deliver shame, that promise relief but cause more pain, that promise freedom but create more chains. Michael, destroy the lies I accept as truth about myself. These inner voices that repeat, "You're not good enough. You don't deserve to be happy. You'll always fail. You'll never change." Free me from the voices that whisper limitations in my ear, these constant comparisons that make me feel inferior, these internal judgments that condemn me before I even try, these self-fulfilling prophecies that create the future I fear most. Break the destructive patterns that repeat in my life, these vicious cycles of toxic relationships, of self-sabotage, of choices that harm my own future. Cut the invisible threads that connect me to the painful past, these memories that can't just be memories, but continue bleeding into the present. These wounds that healed on the outside, but remain open inside. Michael, with your flaming sword, also cut the chains of uncontrolled anger that explodes at the most inappropriate moments. This rage that hurts those I love most, that destroys relationships, that makes me say things I deeply regret. Break the bonds of depression that cover my life with a blanket of seemingly endless sadness. This melancholy that makes me question the value of life itself, that steals the color from each day, that makes me walk as if carrying the world on my shoulders. And all the other chains, Michael, those I don't even have names for, but that you see clearly. Those hidden in the depths of my soul, operating behind the scenes of my life, limiting my potential without me realizing it. Cut them all. Break them completely. Destroy them definitively.
Now, Michael, after breaking the chains, I ask you to purify the places where they were attached. Purify my mind from the mental prisons I've built over the years. These fortresses of negative thoughts, these towers of pessimism, these castles of hopelessness I've built brick by brick through painful experiences. Cleanse my heart from the wounds that became strongholds, these pains that hardened and turned into walls, preventing love from entering and leaving freely. These emotional scars that became filters through which I interpret all reality. Renew my inner strength that was undermined by the prison. This courage that existed before I learned to be afraid. This hope that shone before I knew disappointment. This joy that was natural before I carried so many burdens. Restore my identity that was deformed by the chains. This true perception of who I am in Christ, not contaminated by others' opinions, not distorted by traumatic experiences, not diminished by comparisons. Michael, give me back the dignity I lost while I was trapped. This sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on performance, isn't based on achievements, doesn't need to be constantly proven. Rekindling me the flame of hope that almost went out. This faith in the future that makes me get up in the morning with expectation, that makes me dream again, that makes me believe the best days are still to come. Renew my ability to trust. Trust in God, trust in the right people, but mainly trust in myself. This ability to make decisions without constant second-guessing, to follow my intuition, to believe I can make wise choices. Restore my natural joy, not dependent on circumstances. This happiness that springs from within, that doesn't need external reasons, that resists storms and celebrates in good times. Michael, also purify my way of seeing others. Remove the filters of judgment, suspicion, and comparison through which I've been observing people. Give me back the ability to see the good, to believe the best, to give the benefit of the doubt. And renew in me, Michael, the unshakable faith that I can be and do everything God created me for.
not by my own strength, but by His grace, not by merit, but by His love, not by ability, but by His power.
Michael, now that the chains have been broken and the places purified, I ask for your continuous protection against any attempt at new imprisonment. Place around me your impenetrable armor of light, this spiritual shielding that repels every attempt by the enemy to re-establish the chains you just broke. Let your legions of angels keep permanent guard over my life, not just today, not just this week, but every day from here forward. A guard that never sleeps, never relaxes, never lowers vigilance. Don't allow, Michael, that I return to old prisons out of habit or familiarity. This human tendency to return to the known, even when the known is harmful. Keep me conscious that freedom is my new normal. Now, Michael, with your authority backing my words, I declare my total freedom in the name of Archangel Michael and by the power of Almighty God. I declare that the chains are broken, not partially, not temporarily, but completely and permanently broken. I declare that the prisons are open. Every cell where my soul was confined has been unlocked by the key of angelic liberation. I now exit from darkness into the light of true freedom. No longer will I live in the shadows of fear, limitation, smallness. I now walk toward the full light of my destiny in God. I declare that my soul has been liberated by the power of the heavenly warrior. Michael broke what I couldn't break, cut what I couldn't cut, opened what I couldn't open. I am free to be who God created me to be, not the diminished version the world tried to convince me was my limit, but the full, complete, powerful version that always existed in the Creator's heart. I am free. I am free. I am free, and I will remain free all the days of my life. Michael, faithful warrior, now I kneel before the greatness of what you've done and accept my eternal gratitude. You broke what I couldn't even see. Chains so old I had forgotten what it was like to live without them. Prisons so familiar I thought they were part of who I was. My freedom is living testimony of your invincible power. Every step I take in freedom will be a declaration that Michael, God's archangel, still works miracles on earth.
If you made it this far, if you said this prayer from beginning to end, it wasn't out of curiosity, it wasn't by accident, it wasn't by coincidence. It was because your soul recognized the voice of liberation. It was because something inside you knew this was the moment, this was the prayer, this was the power you were looking for. Archangel Michael has already been invoked over your life, not symbolically, not theoretically, but really, powerfully, transformatively. But listen carefully. It's not enough to pray once. Freedom needs to be consolidated. Transformation needs to be established. Victory needs to be sealed. Repeat this prayer for 21 consecutive days, always at the same time. It can be morning, it can be evening, it can be lunchtime. The important thing is to create a sacred ritual. Do it in a private place, in an environment where you can concentrate completely. Light a special Archangel Michael candle. If you don't have one, get one. The candlelight represents the light of freedom entering your life. Keep your angel gratitude journal beside you. Each day after the prayer, write at least one thing that changed, one chain you noticed was broken, one area of life where you feel more freedom. Now, I need you to do something very important. Share this prayer with someone you know needs to be liberated. It could be a family member fighting addictions. It could be a friend trapped in toxic relationships. It could be a coworker dominated by anxiety. It could be a neighbor lost in depression. Your freedom isn't just for you. It's to impact the world around you. Michael wants to use you as an instrument of liberation for other people. Leave a comment below telling which chain you feel Michael broke in your life during this prayer. Your testimony might be exactly what someone needs to read to have courage to say their own prayer. Subscribe to the REV Angels channel to receive liberation prayers daily. Hit the bell to not miss any spiritual battle we'll fight together. Never forget this truth that will change your life forever. Where Michael draws his sword, prison becomes freedom. You're no longer alone on this journey. The most powerful heavenly warrior in the universe fights by your side. Not just today, not just this week, but every day of your life. Your liberation is not temporary. It's not conditional. It's not fragile. It's permanent, absolute, and sealed in heaven by the Most High's authority. You are free. Free to dream, free to try, free to fail and start over, free to love and be loved, free to be the extraordinary person God always knew you were. And remember, when Michael draws his sword for your freedom, not all the demons of hell can keep you trapped. You are free. Stay free. Live free. In Archangel Michael's name, amen.